Or recording.
Recording on tape.
On the tape. Shalom, bro.
Shalom, my brother. Shalom, everybody that's listening to this on the tape.
Yeah. How you doing, my mans?
Yeah, pretty good. Praise be to Yahuah. I didn't do much today
Yeah.
because today is Xmas and everybody is not doing anything they are supposed to do. I normally I have a student on Thursday, but he said, can we please just not study today because Christmas or whatever. Despite the fact that we don't celebrate that stuff because it's highly unbiblical and pagan, um, I said, okay, you're not going to be in the class if I force you to do it. So I just figured, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. I will say, one of the benefits is, at least for me, is everything is closed. So I don't have to work. I didn't have to work today.
Right.
I have to work tomorrow. And then, New Year's Day, I'm off. So, what? I'll take it's off with pay, so I'll take it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
But do you still get paid or they are going to discount it for
No,
you?
yeah, they still pay me. I still get that cheddar, that government cheese. You know what I
How
mean?
are you? I heard you had pancakes like 3 in the afternoon. So.
Well, you heard right, and you heard it from the horse's mouth. Yeah. Well, it wasn't 3 in the afternoon, may I say? It was like 1, and that was my breakfast. I think I woke up. I slept in a bit. I woke up at 9:30 today, and
Right.
then we were just chilling in the morning. I had some coffee, a little bit of coffee.
That's mandatory.
And what else did we do? I don't remember. We were watching that show, David, I was telling you about.
Right.
Which, I don't know. You probably got tired of me saying it's really good, man. You need to watch it. It's really good. I think I said it 20 times, as if they're paying me or something. But it's a banger.
I mean, I was almost being convinced of watching Game of Thrones because on my YouTube Reels feed, the only thing that show up is the good clips of the series.
Yeah.
So I was almost convinced of watching that stuff. So it's way better just to watch, David's Throne. I think that's the David's House, David's Throne.
House of David. Yeah.
House of David.
Well, I did watch Game of Thrones years ago. It was good. It was a good show. I know maybe that's not politically correct to say in this movement, but good show is a good show. I got to call it a good show. A good show.
Right.
But it's definitely, it's that vibe. They actually do a really good job with the fight scenes. It does usually smaller, studios, and especially I think it's a Christian studio or something like that. They usually have kind of corny acting, but
Right.
it's actually really good. And dude, they say they have the Hebrew and Paleo. So when they have at one point, there's I'm not gonna spoil it, but at one point, they put up a memorial and you see the Paleo Hebrew lettering. Anytime you see a scroll, it's all in Paleo. They don't say Yahuah, but they do say say Yahweh a couple times, and so it's interesting to see that kind of language starting and that kind of references to be starting to see more in the mainstream.
The historical fact more than the paddle tradition.
Yeah. Which I mean, obviously it's doesn't stick to scripture to the T, because then you're going to be done in 30 minutes. So there is obviously the writer aspect, but the key, everything that's reference scriptures there. It's just obviously they the scriptures doesn't tell you how many times Moses used the bathroom. What I mean? What do you have for dinner? You know what I mean? What he did on his 76th birthday.
Yeah.
What was his favorite hobby? So they take the creative liberty to fill in those gaps, and
how many?
It's really good.
Egyptians he beat up.
Yeah. So it's really good. So yeah, we're watching that. It was really fun.
I'm excited because me and my wife. It's been a while since we last watched anything together, together. Because she's more of a Korean drama type of stuff, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
I am more
Korean.
I'm more into medieval stuff with swords and shields and whatever. When I say medieval, it's just the picture, medieval picture,
the theme.
Fields, and the field battles and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since I last watched anything regarding that stuff. And I've been avoiding Bible shows because they normally, get under my skin real quick.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Twisting the scriptures and putting romances that never existed in scripture just to sell or whatever.
Yeah.
And, that kind of gets me off my balance a little bit, so I've been avoiding them. There's this series called The Chosen on Netflix.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been recommended a few times, but then I went to watch like a few reviews of Christian people that watched it, and they said that like, okay, you guys just made a series where Jesus is doubting himself and is full of, trust issues and is angry, and I was like, okay, now they're trying to humanize Yahusha.
yeah, yeah,
So I just try not to watch this stuff, but since you are recommending it so dearly, I
yeah.
might have I might have to take a shot at it.
It's really good. It's really. I'm the same way. Like I know about The Chosen. I never watched it, but I saw like some clips, and it just, I don't know. It didn't hold me. I was like, this. That's the thing with like that kind of genre, I guess if you could call it a show. Like oftentimes, I'm not saying like I said, I never watched The Chosen. I can't give you an elaborate review, but just from what I saw, it just looked kind of like meh, you
Yeah.
know. And I was like, nah. But yeah, this one's worth the watch for sure. Um, so yeah. Anyways, chattering about the film industry. I wanted to share something with you
Go ahead.
because I've been thinking about this all week.
You're not trying to come back to Love Apples, are you?
Bro, I'm already there.
Oh, man.
Like, and I'm never leaving, dude. I'm sorry.
Why are
It's
you
just
relinquishing the program?
that I never followed the program in the first place. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep it a stack. I never.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, yeah. I have cut back on my Love Apple consumption. But it's funny you bring that up because similarly, what I wanted to bring your attention, or I guess talk to you about and see what you think, is it has to do with apples. I'm talking about the fruit from the
Oh,
Garden of Eden, which we
right.
have not. Well, this is what we're getting into. Was it apple? Was it not? But I wanted to share this with you because I was watching the second episode of the Declaring Messiah podcast with Shaliak Moshe and Shaliak Sam.
Right.
And in that episode, towards the end, Apostle Sam brings up, they're talking about the garden, talking about Adam, and I think Shulek's bringing up the notion of, let me adjust my camera, I'm looking like an amateur right now. He brings up Shulek brings up the garden. He's talking about, Adam and how Yahuah pretty much gives him a form of Torah, right? A commandment to not eat of the fruit of the knowledge, or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
And he's because the consequence of that, it was that in the day that you eat of it, you shall die. And so they're bringing up that concept, and he's explaining, but it's obviously not a physical death, but a spiritual death. And somehow the actual fruit comes up, which is something that everybody always talks about, right? Like, what was the fruit? Was it a pomegranate? Was it a love apple? Which I hope it was not a love apple because it's gonna make me look even worse. Was it a watermelon? Whatever. And Apostle Sam says, like, I don't think it's that physical fruit at all. And he goes on to explain that he thinks he kind of goes into it, but they don't really flush it out, like, because obviously the topic isn't about the fruit. The topic's about the 70 AD return.
Right.
So I wanted to see what you thought about that because I've been thinking about it all week, and it makes 100% sense to me in my mind that it wasn't a physical fruit. And so I'm going through Genesis again, and I'm reading, it's in between chapter 2 and it goes into 3, mainly chapter 3, right? So, and here's why I think that Apostle Sam is right. And I don't know if our Shaliak is on like fully board, but it seems like it was like agreeing with it. But very simply put, to the best of my ability, right? I think that Apostle Sam is incorrect, that it wasn't a physical fruit. And because what is, when you see the tree of knowledge of good and evil described, what is it? It's a tree. But what type of tree is it? A tree of knowledge, specifically about good and evil, right? And then what other tree is in the garden as well? The tree of life. So what I think is that you have the tree of life, which symbolizes the connection to Yahuah, right? You stay eating from the tree of life, the doctrine, the understanding, the teachings of Yahuah. You are consuming, you are in covenant with Yahuah. He commands Adam, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So what does Eve do? She's wandering around, she encounters the serpent. The serpent asks her a question. I'm going to pull it up because I want to read through it.
Go ahead.
I want to get your thoughts on this, see what you think. So here we are in 3, Genesis 3, right? So we'll
Right.
start reading. Now the serpent, this is after,
Can you zoom in a little bit?
yeah, hold on.
Thank you.
You good there? So we see Adam and Eve, or Eve is created, Adam's all happy, woohoo. And a key point I want to highlight is in 25. So, and they were both naked, and the Ish and his Isha, the husband and the wife, and were not ashamed. So they were naked and they weren't ashamed. So one could presume metaphorically they were blameless, they were without sin, they were fully under the covering of Yahuah, right? Following his doctrine, following his commandments. So they were naked, and there was no shame in that nakedness because there was nothing to be exposed. They were purely light.
There was no transgression.
Right. They were purely clean, perfect. Adam had the fade, his beard was looking crisp, so on and so forth.
Fly.
And we get to 3. Now the serpent was craftier than any beast of the field that Yahuah Elohim has made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim really said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die the death. And obviously, from our understanding, the death is the spiritual death, right?
Right. Because Adam basically didn't die the same day. He died a long time ago, but he lost the connection to Yahuah.
Right. So 5. For Elohim does know that in the day you eat of it, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be like Elohim, knowing tov and evil. So is Eve really eating a physical fruit? I don't think so. What I think it is who seems to be the one wielding this fruit, this tree, the serpent.
Right.
So this is the doctrine, the understanding, the teachings of the serpent, how to live your life, the proper order according to the serpent's perspective. So 6, we're going to 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes and a tree to be desired to make one wise, right? Fruit don't make you wise. Knowledge, discernment, right? Makes you, or learning, gaining, increasing in understanding makes you wise under a specific doctrine. She took the fruit of it and did eat and gave it also to her husband with her. And he did eat. So essentially, what is Chavadush? Eve goes to the serpent. She learns from the serpent. She engages with the serpent. Because what did Yahuah say? Don't just eat of it, but don't even touch it. Don't even get close to it. Don't think, essentially is what Yahuah was saying is just, stay away.
Right. Technically, he didn't say anything about touching. He just said, just don't eat it.
So it was Eve who said, you shall not touch it.
Yeah.
But regardless, the point is don't consume of this knowledge. Don't partake in it. Right. So she goes, she gives it to Adam. Adam also eats of it. And it's interesting how she describes the tree. It is pleasant to the eyes. It's a tree to be desired to make one wise. All right. So this could be the worldly knowledge, the earthly knowledge, the knowledge of rebellion. And the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves breeches. So after they consume and partake in that knowledge, they then realize they were naked. Prior to this, they didn't even know they were naked.
Right.
And what's the first thing they do? They go to cover themselves up.
Chain.
Mm-hmm. And so on and so forth, right? So we get in, they hear Yahuah confronts them, they hid themselves from him. Yahuah calls out to Adam. And 10, I heard your voice in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And what is the first thing Yahuah asks Adam? He said, who told you that you were naked? Who told you? Who taught you? Who brought to you this new knowledge that you are naked? He didn't say, yo, why is your stool a different color than it usually is? Why are you pooping? Why you have diarrhea? You got some food poisoning? No, he said, he's asking about the knowledge he's acquired. Who told you were naked? And instantly, what does he say? You have eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat. And then Adam says, the woman gave it to you. The woman you gave me taught me. The woman you brought into my life taught me this knowledge. She went and grabbed it. She taught it. Yahuah just asked the woman, what did she do? The serpent deceived me and I did eat, right? Because you have done this, it goes on into the curses and the curses.
Right.
So all that to say, okay, let me stop sharing this. that I'm in Apostle Sam's. I agree with his understanding. I definitely do not think it was an actual fruit. I think it was simply knowledge. It was simply teaching. It was doctrine of good and evil.
Right. So I think that's the course of thinking. I think that's the thought process that makes more sense. Because now that we have the understanding, we have been learning that the book of Revelation, for instance, is highly symbolical, is highly metaphorical, and is way less literal than we always thought it was. I was talking about this today. I'm doing a little class for a few people, like just to get them caught up with the 70 AD stuff because they got recently to the congregation and whatever. And I was saying that I watched the same episode you did of the returning the Messiah podcast, and I was wondering about this too. The fruit of knowledge. How can you eat knowledge?
Right.
And I think Apostle Sam is onto something. And what was brought to my attention was Hanukkah chapter 7. Basically, the first thing that the fallen angels did after they kind of mingled with the men and the daughters of them was to teach them like charms, enchantments, like
weapons
warfare,
of war,
like
how to read the stars,
how to basically they taught humankind all things that was not for humankind to know.
Right.
And that makes a lot of sense with all a lot of creation myths of several cultures. For instance, the quote unquote history, I'm called it story, the creation story of the Egyptians. Basically, Osiris, he came from the waters of a flood on a boat. Then he dropped off Egypt and started teaching all the remainder of mankind how to plant, agriculture, the stars, the gods, the pantheon, and whatever. Then he skedaddled out of there. Then you go to Mexican, I think it's Mayan. I don't remember if it's Mayan, Aztec, or Inca, but one of those guys, one of those civilizations. One of their creation myths is the Quetzalcoatl, which is basically basically a serpent that comes from the same diluvian waters. Teach them a bunch of stuff, including warfare and viciousness, and then skedaddles out of there too. So it makes a lot of sense that the serpent would teach them a bunch of stuff, would mess them over, and then just leave them to be. Also, the fallen angels go there, intermingle with mankind, teach them a bunch of stuff, then try to flee. So I'm saying all this to say that it's a lot of coincidences. And now that we have this understanding, which is not new but renewed to us of 70 AD, those metaphors sound like metaphors now. They sound less literal than they actually are. Of course, we have the actual names of rivers like the Euphrates, the Tigris, and whatever. We have the region of Aden that we can kind of pinpoint where it is at. But I think I'm with you on that bandwagon. I think this thing that is being told here is just being told through figures of speech, and I believe that this was deeper because, as you said, like somebody told them, and out of a sudden they messed up. So it sounds like there's a correlation between the spoken word, and the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. So it feels like they just left Yahuah's Torah because faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of Yahuah, and they went and heard something else that they were not supposed to hear, and then they became wise as Elohayim.
Well, not only did they hear, right, the anti-Torah, but they implemented the anti-Torah. And I think that's also a key thing, right? Because what does Eve do? Teaches Adam what she learned, and then they both realize they're naked, and they go both to sow fig leaves. So they're implementing the knowledge. They didn't just hear something and like one in one ear out the other, but they also like implemented those practices. They adopted those understandings, and they took that as gospel. When Yahuah said, "Never told you were naked," you weren't naked. You accept that, or it's a fundamental understanding. You hear a different doctrine, a different teaching, and you take that as the truth. and dispense with Yahuwah's knowledge and replace it with the serpent's knowledge, or the knowledge from the tree of good and evil, or
So
tree of knowledge of good and evil.
it's safe to
And
say that like once they lost their identity, they they were done.
they were cooked.
Apostle Peter, he constantly talks about this. Once you lose your identity, or when somebody steals that from you, you're done, because you need to know who you are in order for you to enact the blessings and also avoid the curses. So it feels like with this trend of thought that we are creating here, that, or or we at least are parroting, that once they lost their identity, in the sense that they started moving away from Yahuwah's direction and heard something else, they forgot that they were sinless. They forgot that they were blameless. They forgot that they were not naked.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody said, I'm naked. So what do I do now? Now I have to cover myself, relinquishing Yahuwah's covering. So it makes a lot of sense that basically, like, with one word of doubt, Satan basically stole their identity from them.
Right.
They gave heed to Satan's words instead of Yahuwah's words. It makes a lot of sense because we're talking about knowledge.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting too, because what do you do when you're somewhere you're not supposed to be? You hide.
Yeah.
And what were Adam and Eve doing? They were hiding from Yahuwah, because at that point they knew, based on this new knowledge that they adopted, that they are not now allowed. They are now not allowed in the garden. That they're not supposed to be there. They're a fish out of water at this point, because they have in the garden, they walked with Yahusha. They walked with Yahuwah, right? They dwelled with him. So they had a direct connection, and they were directly under the covering of Yahuwah.
Let me look it up real quick. I'm curious now about how is the verbiage in the Hebrew and in the Greek.
I was looking at the Hebrew.
We have the Apostolic Bible Polyglot that kind of sheds a little bit of light, and we can use like Greek cognates to match the Hebrew.
Right. And so what was my thought? To finish my thought, so they walked with Yahuwah in the cool of the day. So in adopting, it goes into, it's like you were saying, right? That when you lose your identity, you it hit it. Okay, let me gather my thoughts here. It inhibits your ability to practice your identity, right? So your identity is in Yahusha, but you don't even know that you're supposed to be someone in Yahusha. You're going to adopt a different identity. So what identity did they adopt? They adopted an identity of sin, of animosity towards Yahuwah, of a different teaching. So they can no longer dwell with Yahuwah, because they're not one of his at this point any longer. And now they must leave the garden, because imperfection cannot dwell in perfection.
Right.
But because we are now dirty, we have to stay away from Yahuwah until he purifies us, cleanses us, and he can bring us back. And another thing, well, I'll let you, because it's the same topic, but it's a different point. So let me see. I want to see what you were going to say.
Right. I'm trying to find, because like, if we're talking about something that is spiritual or has like more of a spiritual or metaphorical connotation, technically we should find something in terms of the verb, or in terms of how it is written, how is it structured, because I'm looking at here in the Hebrew, it says akal. This is Hebrew 398, akal, which basically means to eat, and it has a lot to do with food, and that's about it. But like, to eat, literal and figuratively, not only literally. And in the Greek, and we know that the scriptures were not written in Greek. This is a very later language, but like the Apostolic Bible Polyglot has a way that you can, like, you have Greek Strong's numbers with their Hebrew cognates in all the scriptures. So like, they get the Hebrew and try to find the next thing, the best next thing in Greek of that, like a direct cognate. In Greek, it basically says Greek 2068, estio, which is basically a strengthened form of a primary word, edo, used only in certain tenses, the rest being supplied by pago, which means to eat. So estio is a different type of eating is strengthened from a primary word edo, to eat, but it's like a strengthened way,
Right.
something different than just like normal, feeding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's eating of the fruit. You're ingesting. You're bringing whatever teaching you're embodying it. You're making it a part of you now.
Right.
That's why they were no longer. That's why they found out they were naked, because now this is a part of them. They stick out like a sore thumb. I don't know if that made any sense, but in my mind, I know what I'm saying. Another thing too, I want to share, because I was just thinking about this, because you're saying that it may be just more of a parable, another form of a parable, like a metaphor. Well, it's very clear that, okay. So if you think about, tell me what you think of this. Like, think about it in this context, right?
Right.
Who wrote Genesis?
Technically, Yahuah did.
Right. But who transcribed it? Like, who put it? Who put the ink to paper? Moshe, right?
Moses.
So was Moses in the garden and saw? Was he an eyewitness? Was he an eyewitness to these accounts physically?
No.
Yahuah gave him, or told him, taught him what to write. He said, "Hey, this is the account of Adam and Eve in the garden."
Right.
Right. So Yahuah was teaching Moses. Yahuah was teaching Moses by what? The word. Right. He spoke to Moses. Who was the word?
You just give me an eureka moment, but go ahead.
Okay. Right. I think maybe you know where I'm going with this. So who was the word? Yahusha.
Yahushua, right.
So Yahusha was what Moses interacted with, the word of Yahuah.
Right.
He's the one who gave him what to write down the account. So we go to Matthew 10, when Yahusha is teaching the people, who Yahusha is the word of Yahuah. He's the word incarnate, the same word that came to Moses, the same word that came to Abraham and taught them. And he's teaching to the people. Once he's here in the flesh, carnally, how is he teaching the people?
Parables.
And parables, right? He's teaching them parables. So what do the disciples do when they come to Yahusha after he teaches parable in Matthew 10? And I'll put it up so we can read it.
Can you teach this? What the hell you just said today? I didn't understand nothing.
Do I gotta go? Wait. Did I miss something?
No. I'm saying, like, I'm answering your question. You said, what did the disciples do? They basically got to Yahushua and say, can you just expand upon what you just said?
Yeah. So
we didn't understand diddly what you just said.
So this takes place after a parable. Which parable is this? He sprung up because it had no deep. Okay, so this is about the 4 different types of seeds, right?
Right.
So the disciples come to him and ask Yahusha, like, dude, why do you speak to them in parables? And I think Yahusha's answer is feeding into what I'm saying, right? 11, he answered and said to them, because it is not given to you to know the mysteries. It is given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whoever has, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. Whoever has not, for him shall be taken away what he has. Therefore,
just so I don't forget my comment, not about this, but related to the 70 AD return, that fortifies the theory that I have. That generation was already condemned. There was not chance anymore for them. I believe once Yahusha gets there is no way anymore. I believe the 40 years between 30 and 70 was just for the righteous people to be saved and then to get out of there. But that generation, that wicked generation, especially the houses of the Pharisees, they were done, because they also say, I don't want them to understand. I want you guys to understand, because their time is up.
He wasn't there for the Pharisees. He was there for his sheep, and the Pharisees were not his sheep. So once Yahusha came, their judgment was right there. They were, while Yahusha was walking and teaching, and the Pharisees were rejecting him, their judgment was transpiring through his earthly ministry. You know what I'm saying? Once he left, like, it was GG. It was done. The temple's going to be destroyed, and they're not going anywhere. They're going to keep continuing in their control of power. So, okay, so back to this, right? So what is Yahushua saying? He's telling them why he speaks in parables. 13, therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which said, by hearing you shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see and shall not perceive. For this people's heart has become thickened, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should make teshuvah, and I should heal them. So on and so forth. But I think that gets to the point I'm trying to get across. So perhaps it just goes into the idea that we're saying, right? That perhaps the fruit wasn't a physical fruit, it wasn't an actual fruit, but this is really a parable, because what Yahuwah's trying to do is relay the message. And who are the only ones who, it is like, Yahuwah doesn't need to say things clear as day, right? It's like, as long as you're under his covering, he can speak in parables, because you're going to understand the parables, and those who are not in covenant with Yahuwah are not going to understand.
Yeah, because they're not going to be interested in it.
Right. So it could be just feeding further into the, I guess, the hypothesis that and kind of feeding off what Apostle Sam said, that, yeah, I don't think it's a fruit. This is a parable for the recreation account.
Right.
Right. And those
Also,
who will understand that are those who are in covenant with Yahuwah.
You gave me an eureka moment, because, like, what other times do we have Yahuwah giving precisely, like Yahuwah himself, or Yahusha being the incarnate word of Yahuwah, giving himself anything to anybody? The book of Revelation, which is from Yahuwah through Yahusha, through Hanok, and through John. That's one. And the language is all symbolic. Then we have the book of Daniel. Is the relation of another angel giving to Daniel directly. So everything that comes from Yahuwah through a man seems to be very parabolical, besides the Torah. But then we go back to Genesis. It feels like that part of the recreation has a lot to do with the book of Revelation, for instance. A lot of symbols. And we have names also in the book of Revelation. We have the 7 congregations very specifically mentioned: Laodicea,
Right.
Ephesia, Corinthia, and whatever. Pontus. I remember the name of all of them, but the names are there. So technically, it sounds like a parable, but at the very same time, it doesn't sound like a parable, because in the book of Daniel, we have the names of the people. We have this coming in a dream. We don't have any names of kingdoms. We don't have any names of anybody, but we kind of can trace because of history. But it kind of strikes strange to me that now that we are understanding 70 AD and everything, that the way that Yahusha was speaking on the Mount of Olives, the Olivet Discourse, it doesn't seem like there were 2 people, like a naked couple in a I don't know, somebody's courtyard, just eating apples all day, and out of a sudden they ate a mango, somebody went down. It doesn't seem credible anymore. There's something more to this. And check this out: the Greek estio that I looked up before, like to eat, in that in past tense when Chava ate, it's a Greek verb meaning to eat, to consume, or to devour, used in various tenses and forms in ancient Greek and the New Testament, often alongside other related forms like phagein, to eat, or katestio, to devour, for different nuances, from taking a meal to consuming something voraciously, or figuratively wasting away property. So it's a lot of context here.
Right. So it's a versatile word, essentially. But it's very interesting, because it's like in Matthew 10, when they ask him why do you speak to them in parables, what does Yahusha say? He says, because it is given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. It is given to you. So what does that mean? Yahuwah doesn't want just anybody to know about the mysteries of heaven. He doesn't want just anyone to understand. Understanding Yahuwah and the mysteries of Yahuwah and the mysteries of heaven is a privilege that it's not just a guarantee or granted to just anybody. It's a privilege. So how does he sort who's going to get to understand and who's not? Those who are with him. And those who are under his covering, they receive the Ruach, right? They receive an essence of Yahuwah. And it's like, you know, when they write invisible ink and you put a UV light,
right,
and you can see what's actually there. It's like when you are under the covering of Yahuwah, he gives you that UV light so you can see the mysteries and understand. So why would he, like, if, right? And I could be wrong, but this is just my brain just starting to fire off. But Yahuwah is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if Yahusha taught in parables, Yahuwah's always taught in parables. No? If this is his style of teaching, can't we say that he's always taught in this manner?
I believe we can affirm that, because if you get all the books of the prophets, there is no one straightforward sentence in those books.
Right.
It's always in that style, parabolic. Like, it takes centuries for somebody to understand the parables and what they are talking about. So, yeah, I think we can affirm that.
So in this case, when Yahuwah is teaching Moses about the past, about how things came to happen, and he's giving him the command to write, he could very well be teaching him in a parable. This could be a parable for the actual literal events that occurred, which was
Right.
Adam and Eve were in the garden. They were under Yahuwah's covering. Yahuwah said, hey, don't go learn from this guy over here by this tree, because his teachings are going to make you depart from me. So where do they go? They go to Eve is walking around. The serpent does what? Talk to her, communicates with her, right? Starts to teach her his understandings, his ideas of rebellion.
Right.
Teaches it to Adam, then they get kicked out.
Very literally, it seems.
Yeah.
There's something more to this. More to this. The next step, I think, would be to go and find the what was I going to say? To look up like all the instances of the word fruit in all the
Right.
languages to see
Let's
what
see
we
what
can
the
find.
context.
And if we have like different words for that same thing.
Right. Well, Yahusha spoke about fruit. What did he say? He said you should know a tree by its fruit.
Right.
Now, is Yahuwah saying you're going to know Yoshiyahu by whether he makes apples, love apples, peaches, avocados? No, you know Yoshi by his actions, the fruit, the what is manifested from him. In your
Right.
case, the teachings, the works you do, that's his fruit. So, what is the fruit? The fruit, right? The fruit, the serpent's fruit is confusion. Right? What is the fruit of Yahuwah? Life, the tree of life. The fruit of Yahuwah is life. The fruit of the serpent is death and confusion.
Right.
To counteract or to bring chaos. When Yahuwah tells you go this way, he's telling you to go the other way. When Yahuwah says that you are not naked or you're pure in his sight, the enemy says, no, you are naked. You need to cover yourself up because you look disgusting right now.
Right. The fruit, the direct result of whatever it is that they ate is basically being lied to.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting discussion.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I've been thinking about this week. That's what I've been pondering on. I think it makes sense. And yeah, I don't think it's a fruit. But, one thing that you also brought up that I think about from time to time or quite frequently, I told Vanessa this too, is like, I definitely believe, because at one point you're mentioning how, the fallen angels, right? And Enoch speaks about how the fallen angels taught men how to make weapons of war, astronomy, alchemy, this, that, and the other. And my hypothesis, and I can't prove it, I haven't read 30 books on the subject to make a college dissertation about it. But in my opinion, I think it's very credible to think that the Egyptian pantheon, the Hindu pantheon, all these things, those are all just fallen angels.
Right.
These, whether it's the Greek gods or the Egyptian gods, all these are fallen angels. And it makes sense. They're common amongst all ancient civilizations. Like you said, in South America, very common. In all over Asia, all over
Central
India.
America, China, everywhere. I don't know much about Japanese mythology and Shintoism, but basically they have gods and goddesses, and the main thing they do is to teach human beings. It's always the same trend. It's like knowledge being passed down, and very advanced knowledge to the advancements of society. And it always have to do with no, now you can provide for yourself.
Right.
Now you have agriculture, you can eat. I'm not saying that planting herbs is demonic. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But I believe we have been taught this type of stuff before the time we were supposed to learn. According to what it says in the book of Hanok, in the book of Enoch, basically says that these fallen angels basically taught mankind everything that they shouldn't have taught them. And that kind of strikes me weird because a lot of the things that we see there are paramount for surviving, like agriculture, farming, cattle breeding, and whatever. And I keep thinking I used to think more about this before when I was teaching English and I had 1 hour break and I would read the book of Hanuk and Jubilees back to back, trying to understand what the hell is going on with all that information. And it always struck me weird, okay, but why is that wrong? Technically, those things are paramount for our endurance as human beings. But I don't think it was the right season.
For sure. I mean, you think about it, it's the fallen angels teaching these things so that they are not reliant on Yahuah. It's like, what is the intention from the angels teaching men how to make weapons of war, right? So that when they go to war, they lean on the weapons and they don't lean on Yahuah.
And they commit murder as well.
Right. What is the purpose of teaching them how to grow crops? So they don't have to follow. They don't have to rely on Yahuah, and they don't have to rely on Yahuah's methods of right. The 7-year jubilee, the 7th year being a jubilee. You have to let the land rest. Doing this, doing that, giving a tenth of your harvest to the priest, doing all this and that. It's like, no, you just grow your own crop, rely on yourself. The focus being self-reliance, focus on the self. You're your own leader. You're your own priest. You're your own this. You don't need Yahuah. You don't need Yahusha for what? Just like we don't. I mean, that's what Satan did, right? I don't need Yahuah. I can take his seat, do it for myself. This is for me. Me. So that same pattern he goes and teaches to men.
Right.
Because why wasn't Adam and Eve before they ate the fruit? Why did Adam and Eve not know they were naked? Because they weren't naked.
They were not.
They were covered. They were covered by Yahuah. They weren't naked. So it was a serpent who teaches them that they're naked. So what? So they clothe themselves, and they don't need Yahuah's covering.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
As a futile attempt of trying to hide the disobedience.
Right. You think we're cooking?
I think we're cooking.
You think we're cooking?
I don't know if it is with grease, but we are.
Cooking with something, you know what I mean?
We are doing something. We're getting somewhere. But I believe this is highly metaphorical.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense to me. And just because it's metaphor doesn't invalidate what's being said. It's just being told to you in a different way.
On the contrary, it validates even more because Yahusha only spoke to mankind in parables. So technically it affirms, if anything.
And speaking in parables doesn't diminish or doesn't weaken your connection to the Father. If anything, it's a better manifestation of it because even through parables, you can clearly understand what the information he's trying to get across.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's like a way of checking, is this person my sheep? Because if he is, he's going to understand how I speak to him. He's going to understand this parable.
And he's not going to understand just because he's a natural and not all of a sudden he's a genius. Just because he's going to spend the time and ask me and try to come up with something reading my word. Right.
And because it's the same thing that Yahusha was able to teach about his return in 70 AD in front of the Pharisees. The Pharisees are in front of him. His disciples are in front of him. The disciples will get a completely different message than the Pharisees are getting, but the same words are being spoken.
And pretty much none of them got it. They basically, I believe, this is my understanding, that they only understood that stuff in the 40 days after he resurrected, that he basically spent teaching them about this.
Right.
And I believe there's a reason why we don't have the records of this, because I believe he was teaching them at that point very plainly. And technically, they should have understood the parables, but a lot of them didn't, as far as we can understand, because they were always going after him. Like, can you just explain what you just said? Because I didn't understand. I didn't want to ask in front of everybody because I didn't want to embarrass myself. But I believe the reason why we don't have the things that Yahusha said in the next 40 days before he ascended is because he was teaching plainly to them, because it was about to go down. I believe this is what I think.
Yeah. Well, also, it's the same way, right? Look, there's things in the scriptures that have been there for 2,000, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 million years, however you want to think about it.
Right.
And it's been there that long, and people still haven't understood it.
Right.
But what does Yahusha do when one of his sheep don't understand his parables? He explains it to him.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's the same way. We didn't understand the parables of 70 AD, even though we've been reading these parables about 70 AD for the last 2,000 years.
It was in front of us the whole time.
But it's been in front of us the whole time. But when the time was right and the people showed their obedience and they received the revelation. It's like, you're not understanding that I returned in 70 AD? Okay, now enough people, or it's the proper time to be revealed to you. Right? Because it is. And that's why... Okay, this whole 70 AD teaching, does the whole world understand the 70 AD teaching?
Nope.
But it's been there.
Right.
but his flock does, and it doesn't mean that if that there aren't people who are saved and don't understand it. It's not going to reach everybody at the same time, but it's starting to be spread out there. So either way, his mysteries will always be understood by his flock. She will get that understanding, and if you can't understand it by reading the text, or you don't understand it at first pass, he will teach you what they mean.
Indeed. And also, my sheep hear my voice, so it makes
Right.
all the sense.
Yeah.
Does that mean I understood it?
Nope.
I mean, not at this point, but I
Yeah,
will.
yeah,
I will.
yeah. So I thought that was very interesting, and yeah. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I definitely think that the fallen angels are the ones that where you get all these different mythologies,
Right, for sure.
and you read creation myths from other belief systems or this that, and the other, and they all have so many things in common. There's always a global flood, right?
There's
Civilization gets wiped out.
The All Father, the mother of everybody, a lot of hybrids like Thor, Hercules. You have Baldur. You have a lot of weird people that are hybrids. The flood, the final battle between the armies of the dead against the armies of the living, a chosen people, and the restart is always the same thing.
Yeah.
In Norse mythology, it even has the resurrection of the bright one, which is crazy to me. Like when I heard it, I was like, wow, because basically there is Ragnarok, which is like the end battle between the armies of the dead, the armies of Asgard, the armies of mankind, the big ass battle, and then Baldur, which is like one of the sons of the All Father figure, which is the guy with the ravens and stuff. He kills. He is one of the first to be killed, and then he resurrects. And he basically is the beautiful one, the representative of light. And I was like, hold up. That's way too much. You're doing too much at this point.
No, I agree. Well, Yahusha spoke about this. I know it's in John 10. I'm trying to just see where it's at. But it basically says, all who came before me were liars. Right. They were thieves. They were impersonators, imposters. But and it's interesting because, like, the example you're giving right now, with what was that, Roman
Norse mythology?
Okay, where the bright one would be resurrected. That was
the Norse mythology.
So they have the same narrative, but they were all liars and imposters,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So Yahusha even recognized this. So and he spoke about it. So very fascinating stuff.
Indeed, the myths of creation are crazy, man.
Yeah.
There's this archaeological historian or pseudo archaeologist, Graham Norton, I think that's his name. He went on Joe Rogan as well. He has
Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock, yeah, not Norton, Hancock. And I was watching a series of his work there. It was on Netflix, but back when I used to have Netflix. I don't remember the name of it, but basically he was talking about a period called Younger Dryas, which is I don't remember if it's before or after the Ice Age, the last Ice Age, because we had a lot of Ice Ages according to science. And sorry if you're listening to this and you think the world is 6,000 years old only. I mean, we disagree. I cannot prove it, but I know it's kind of weird in my head. So I'm not gonna say I'm right, but we might disagree in this part. But he was saying that in this period of the Younger Dryas, there are elements of history that are far beyond what archaeologists thought possible before, like the Göbekli Tepe archaeological site basically is like 14,000 years old with carbon dating and stuff, and everybody thought that mankind was here for like 12,000 years ago, or at least that was the proof that we had of some sort of sentient beings doing stuff. And I know I'm butchering the details, but basically what he's trying to say is that we seem to be here far longer than we thought before, and we are finding stuff. And also they found, I think it was in Norway, people are always saying like the global warming and whatever, and they found in a glacier that basically was frozen in the 80s or in the 70s, and now they found, because the water level increased and it melted, they found like Viking artifacts. So what does that tell us? That the world functions in cycles.
I was
Because
literally.
before before they found that stuff, somebody lived there. So it's not the global warming, it's just the natural cycle of the world.
Right. Well, I was thinking cycles because look, I just personally can't take anyone serious that says the Earth is 6,000 years old.
It's difficult. It's hard for me.
I just can't. It's hard. It's hard. I still love you, man, but it's hard. But to me, my working theory is that because look, Yahuah works in cycles, right?
Yes.
From the just on the individual day, sunrise to sunset, from the week to years. And I think prior to what distinguishes this time, or what would be the word? Like what distinguishes this iteration or this age is that I think prior to the beginning of this recreation in Genesis, Yahuwah's cycles worked the same, right? Perhaps he made human. He made the type of human, the Neanderthal, the Denisovan, whatever, however you want to think about it. He created man.
Yeah.
Man would mess up per usual, and he'd wipe the earth and he'd start over again.
The only difference that we have from them is that now we have had the Savior.
Right, exactly. So, okay, you're a farmer, and you go plant a bunch of love apples, right? You got a vineyard, and you go plant a bunch of love. And the worst thing that could happen to your love apple vineyard, like all the apples get a disease.
Right.
They're cooked. I mean, you can't eat them, you can't sell them, you can't enjoy them. What are you going to do? You're going to tear it all down. Right. Start over again. Tear it all down. Start over again. Tear it all down. And then Yahuwah this time is like, all right, I'm going to create Adam and Eve. We'll create him in our image. Maybe that's a distinction. Maybe the human beings or the similar types prior to Adam and Eve were created, but not in his image. So he creates a distinction with this kind of human that we are today. And the difference is, because what does he say when he floods the earth in Noah's day?
That he's no longer going to destroy it.
He's no longer going to destroy the earth with a flood. He's not going to destroy it. Why? Because this is it. There's no more redos. It's like, this is it. The difference is he's going to give the remedy to the corruption, which is Yahusha.
Right.
And through Yahusha, he harvests us. So the earth isn't going anywhere. He's not going to wipe out humanity. He's not going to start all over from scratch. He's like, this is it. The crop is going to continue. What is what is the parable that Yahusha says with the wheat and the tare? And he just say, hey, should we just go cut them all down and collect? He's like, no. Let them grow together. And during the harvest, then they will be separated. Because if we don't let them grow together, then we might accidentally cut off
our own
creation, our own people. So he lets us grow. Because think about it. What do we all do when we die? We get buried in the earth.
Right.
So prior to Yahusha's return, where was his crop? Buried in the earth. Most of his people had been dead, right? Moses, Abraham, the Israelites, King David, Solomon, so on and so forth. They're all dead. They're the crop buried in the earth. 70 AD was the first. Yahusha was the first fruit, singular.
Right.
And then in 70 AD was the first harvest of the first fruits, right? And then now it's just a perpetual harvesting.
Indeed. And one thing that I believe archaeology has a different spin on, like, oh, that's the Bronze Age. What do we think when we think about Bronze Age? We think a bunch of monkeys with stones of bronze beating each other.
Planet of the Apes.
Like we think of Caesar like beating somebody up, monkeys strung together. No, the Bronze Age is just because they were using bronze. Do you know how hard it is for you to get to the point? What if I invent a system to purify this rock and then make a sword out of it? That's hard to do, and that takes time.
First of all, bro, and this is why I think human beings were taught these things.
Yeah,
because I don't understand this, bro. And maybe I just have too much of a monkey brain, right? Like my IQ is not high enough. But bro, how can you tell me that how do you figure out to you're hitting rocks one day and you see this shiny thing and you're like, oh, I'm going to put it in fire, and a campfire is not going to melt it. So then you're like, I need to make the fire. How do you get to the point where you find this little rock? It's got some metal stuff. Then you got to separate the metal from the rock. Then you got to melt it. Then you got to smelt it and smelt it, dealt it, right? Then you figure out, oh, I'm going to get a cherry red. I'm going to start banging it with another thing, and I'm going to make it sharp and make a weapon. Bro, how do human beings think about it like this, right? An apple pie.
Right.
How do you figure out to make an apple pie? Who's the first person to make an apple pie?
Let me give you a worse. How do you figure out Wi-Fi? It's something that literally doesn't exist if you think about it, because it's in the air.
Right, right.
How something is in the air and it works, but if it has a wall, it doesn't work anymore.
Bro, I'm just feeling mad. I'm feeling mad retarded right now. I cannot lie, because there's probably some dude where it's like, oh, it's super simple. The Wi-Fi radiates from
Yes,
the router, and the router sends
it's
information
simple.
signals. And
It's simple once somebody invented it. But like, imagine you are, left in a remote island, and then somebody comes to you and say, okay, we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna pick you up in 50 years, and if you created anything that is useful, you receive the right to go back home.
right,
And then like they are expecting you to invent like um, a communication system, towers,
yeah.
a chariot or something like that, and you're sitting down just eating cockroaches, and that's it.
It just doesn't make sense. So, but even simple as apple pie, like, okay, first of all, someone has to grow the wheat, right? Then they got to figure out they can make it into flour. Then they got to figure out that you got to, like, oh, I got this flour. I'm gonna put milk in it. I'm gonna throw an egg, some sugar, and if I mix it all together and I bake it perfectly at the right temperature at the right amount of time, like, bro, who figured that out? Who's the first person? It makes no sense.
And who figured that out? That like, my cow is giving something to her young. I
Hey, let
mean,
me go take a sip of that.
do I try it? And
Someone try
somebody
it.
say, yeah, I'll give you $50 to do it.
I'll give you 50 shekels. I'll give you two. I'll give you a mango and 2 apples to go.
Yeah, 2 rocks. You just
So,
knock yourself out. But anyway, the point that we were trying to say with this, with all this stupid rumbling, is that it feels like there is more to the book of Genesis than we ever thought before. And technically, according to Deuteronomy 29, all things that exist and have been revealed belong to us and our children. And everything else that is in secret belongs to Yahuah and Him alone. So if the book of Revelation is highly symbolical, and this is the premise for the whole thing, if the book of Revelation is highly symbolical, and we have frogs and grasshoppers, and we have 4 horsemen with the colors of Palestine and in anything that you can think of, and all this has been proving it is being proven that there was the parabolical sense and there was the way it happened in real life, and they are very similar to each other, but at the very same time very diametrically opposed. There seems to be more to the book of Genesis, way more, because I think Nehemiah is right. I think we have a lot of parables trying to explain something that happened in a different way.
most definitely. And also, a side note. So I was thinking on your question, I think from the last episode we were talking. When
You're
were
gonna
asking,
have to refresh my memory because I don't remember.
it was you were basically, we were talking about weird stuff, and or like, because I was telling you about how I think that like it was a pre-Adamic. It's not I think, I'm fairly confident it was a pre-Adamic race, and like things were different. You're like, yeah, and I'm curious about like what happens with women and
Right.
men like after you die, because at least in the scriptures is recording that all the angels are male. And you had brought up the how the Pharisees asked Yahusha about the woman
Right.
married to 7 different brothers, and they asked him, and you said because Yahusha said that in the New Jerusalem that there will be that you are neither married or given in marriage.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure. Trying to find the verse, because I'm pretty sure what Yahusha says is not that in the New Jerusalem or in heaven that there won't be marriage or given in marriage, but it's during the resurrection. Because isn't that what the Pharisees ask him? They ask him like, "Yo, this lady's been married, 7 different dudes, 7 brothers. Like in the resurrection, who will she be married to?" And that's when Yahusha says that in the resurrection, they will neither be married nor given in marriage because they're in the process of getting resurrected.
Right. But like, there seems to be something else to that, because like Asholiah gave a teaching about this, and basically they were talking about Yahusha's lineage, because during the Babylonian siege, and I don't remember the names of the dudes, but basically the sons of King Josiah, King Josiah, they were basically trying to rush to produce an heir because they were going to be escorted to Babylon, and they didn't know if they were going to come back alive. And they wanted to produce an heir for the throne of Judah. So they basically did that, and one woman had a lot of had seven husbands, because all of them were getting killed by the Babylonians, because the Babylonians, they captured a lot of the royalty,
Right.
not a lot of the royalty, all the royalty. And Sholech was giving a teaching that we can verify this through the names, that Zerubbabel had two different fathers in the lineage, Shealtiel and another one guy. But basically, both of them were considered his father, because one guy died, then another guy died, then another guy died, but everybody had the same woman. So basically, the Pharisees were trying to rub in Yahusha's face his own lineage, to say you are a bastard,
Right.
because one ancestor of yours had seven different husbands. So in this resurrection of yours, how is that going to happen?
Yeah.
But
No, and
it feels there's something more to this question of mine. Am I taking time to verify this? No, I'm not, because I'm doing a lot of other stuff. But I keep thinking about this, because it makes no sense for me for Yahuah to allow a covenant and then out of a sudden dissect it, and then my wife becomes my soccer buddy in heaven. It makes no sense.
That'd be lame. If that's actually the case, it's gonna sound awesome. But I think actually, well, the way it's in the RSTNE, it does say that in the Olam Haba, in the world to come, that they neither marry nor are given in marriage. But then he kind of continues here. So this is chapter 20 of Matthew. Neither can they die anymore, for they are like the heavenly angels. So they are like them, similar to them, but they are not heavenly angels.
Which verse? Let me look at the Greek.
I'll share it. So I can just Luke chapter 20, verse 30. Go to 34.
34.
No, 35.
35. From the dead neither marry in marriage, neither can they die anymore, for they are equal. Isangelos, like an angel, that is angelic. That's the Greek here.
Mm-hmm.
And it is translated equal unto the angels. Isos, through the idea similar, and G32 agelos, which basically is a messenger, especially an angel, by implication a pastor. But basically it says equal. Let me see if we have any other manuscripts that we can look at here. Let me see what the Septuagint says.
Yeah, because my initial reaction would be that, like, I don't think when we're resurrected we are angels like Gabriel or those kind of, like, first of all, there's different types of angels, right? There's like 7 types.
Yeah.
Cherubim, that's the only one I know off the top of my head.
Cherubim, Seraphim.
Seraphim, yeah.
The normal Malachim. And I think the archangels are the Cherubim, I don't remember.
Yeah, so perhaps we are like the angels, but not exactly angels that are only male. Maybe it's only a certain class of those angels that are only male.
Maybe. But to me, it makes sense. Again, going back to patterns, that Yahuah works in cycles. He created Adam and Chava, male and female, and he made her from his rib. So technically, it makes sense for you, for you guys to become one once you are past this body. But that raises another question: a widow that marries again, whose rib is she going to be?
So I asked Sholech that question, and he said his explanation was the rule of first. The first husband gets the preeminence.
Yeah, makes
the original. But I think, and I guess because we're just like, yapping about this, but it's interesting to think about. Like, I think I lost my train of thought. If there was a counter for how many times I lost my train of thought, I think if I got $1, I think we'd be rich, man. We could go get those tanks you want.
Yeah, don't do that. I think it's better for Russia that you don't do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. What was I saying? I was reading something and it made me think why you were saying that.
Basically, you were talking about my point that you asked Sholech about this, and he said the rule, the first.
Okay. Yes. So, okay, because think about it, like, for one, like just because he says we are echad, that doesn't have to necessarily mean our body literally fuses as one. Because like right now you're married to your wife and you guys are echad, and your bodies, you don't have like one actual physical body that you both are in, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you guys are echad.
Right.
And it would, and I get what you're saying with like, you know, Eve being taken from Adam's side, but that's the only woman in history that's been taken out of Adam's side. That's the only human, that was taken out of Adam's side.
But
everybody else was born the same way.
But what brings me to that conclusion is that was supposed to be the only couple. If they hadn't fallen.
But
if they Yahuah only brought, I mean, he said that she would bear in pain. That may imply two things. Either she could bear children without pain, or she received the ability to bear children after that. Because now out of a sudden we had like a limitation of life.
Possible. I see what you're saying. I would say I guess the counter, now that we're having a formal debate, your favorite. Yeah. I guess what I would think is, I think there's definitely, I understand what you're saying. I think I would lean in the camp of like, I don't know if I could say that the plan was always for Adam and Eve to be the only ones. I think because the commandment of being fruitful and multiply was given before Adam and Eve, no? Didn't he give it?
It was given to the animals.
Well, but didn't he already, in Genesis 1, didn't he create man and women already?
No.
Towards the end of that?
Let's look at it.
Let's look at it.
It's not good for us to be rambling.
I forgot that I still got the share screen. I was taking up the airtime. It's towards the end of... It's at the beginning of chapter 2 or the end of chapter 1? Yeah, look at the end of... Look at 27. No.
26th verse of chapter 1. Let us make Adam in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion of the fish. So the word of Yahuah Elohim created man, Adam, in his own image. In the image of Elohim, he created him, male and female. So he created the first couple on verse 27. And then be fruitful and multiply. Yeah, he said to mankind, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish, of the sea, of fowl, the air, and every living thing that moves upon the earth. Yeah, so technically my argument is in shambles. I stand corrected. Because technically, technically they were supposed to replenish the earth.
Shalom, guys. This is Editing Nehemiah. Just jumping in real quick because the episode kind of ends here a little abruptly, and we do end up talking for quite a while more, but we start getting into a very interesting topic. So we decided to keep that separate, and just for simplicity's sake, you have the video you have right now. So, but make sure you stay tuned, because real soon we're going to release the completed work of what we started digging into, and I think you guys will find it very interesting. So thanks for watching. We love you guys. Shalom.